The Galactic Council's warning broadcast crackled through the settlement's speakers for the third time that morning. Mackenzie ignored it, just as she had the previous 2 times, her fingers working methodically to knit another miniature sweater from the soft yarn she'd brought from Earth. All human personnel are advised to maintain a minimum distance of 50 meters from Zarthian hatchlings. These creatures are classified as apex predators and pose an extreme threat too. She muted the speaker with a flick of her wrist and returned her attention to the 4 small, scaled creatures huddled in the corner of her quarters. They were shivering, their bioluminescent patches flickering weakly in the dim light. The largest one, no bigger than a house cat, let out a pitiful chirp that tugged at her heart. "Dangerous predators, my ass," Mackenzie muttered, finishing the final row of stitches on a bright yellow sweater. "You're just cold, aren't you, babies?" Her companion, Zachary, stood by the doorway with his arms crossed, looking simultaneously concerned and amused. He'd been stationed on Kepler 442b for 2 years longer than Mackenzie, long enough to know that arguing with her was generally futile, especially when it came to anything small and vulnerable. "Mac, you do realize those things grow up to be 12 feet tall and can bite through reinforced steel, right?" he said, watching as she approached the hatchlings with the completed sweater. "Their parents literally hunt in packs and have been known to take down cargo ships. That's when they're adults," Mackenzie replied, crouching down slowly. The hatchlings watched her with large, multifaceted eyes that reflected rainbow patterns in the light. Right now, they're just scared and freezing because someone, she shot a pointed look at Zachary, decided it was a good idea to build a human settlement in the middle of their nesting grounds without proper environmental considerations. She had a point, and Zachary knew it. The Galactic Council had approved the Kepler 442b colony site without conducting proper xenobiological surveys. When the Zarthian migration season arrived, dozens of hatchlings had emerged from underground nests that nobody knew existed, only to find their habitat replaced by prefabricated human structures and climate-controlled domes that dropped the ambient temperature by 15 degrees. The smallest hatchling, the one Mackenzie had privately named Peanut, took a tentative step forward. Its scales were a deep purple that shifted to blue when the light caught them at certain angles. The sweater Mackenzie held was sized for a small dog, but she'd modified the pattern to accommodate the hatchling's 4 legs and the small wing buds on its back. "Come here, sweetie," she cooed, holding the sweater open. "Let's get you warm." To Zachary's amazement, Peanut walked directly into her arms. Mackenzie carefully slipped the sweater over its head, guiding each leg through the appropriate holes. The hatchling chittered softly, a sound that was almost like purring, and its bioluminescent patches brightened to a warm amber. "See," Mackenzie grinned triumphantly. "Dangerous predator." Before Zachary could respond, the other 3 hatchlings scrambled forward, chirping excitedly. They'd been watching their siblings' transformation with keen interest, and now they wanted sweaters too. Over the next 20 minutes, Mackenzie dressed each hatchling in the tiny garments she'd created. One got a green sweater with a hood, another received a striped blue and white number, and the largest wore a red sweater with a single white star on the back. They pranced around her quarters, clearly delighted with their new attire, occasionally stopping to examine each other with curiosity. "You know the council is going to lose their minds when they find out," Zachary said, though he was fighting a smile as he watched the hatchlings play. Commander Way specifically ordered all hatchlings to be relocated to the containment facility. "The containment facility is a glorified freezer," Mackenzie shot back, her voice hardening. "These are living creatures, Zach. They didn't ask to have their home invaded. The least we can do is treat them with basic decency until we can properly relocate them to a suitable habitat." As if to emphasize her point, Peanut climbed in her lap and curled up, its tiny claws kneading her leg gently, the same behavior Mackenzie had observed in both Earth cats and, apparently, baby alien apex predators. She stroked its head, careful to scratch behind the small ridge that would eventually develop into fearsome horns. Zachary sighed and sat down beside her. "You're going to start an interstellar incident over baby sweaters." "Maybe," Mackenzie admitted. "But look at them, Zach. Really look at them." He did. The 4 hatchlings were now playing with a ball of yarn that had rolled across the floor, batting it between them with surprising coordination. Their movements were clumsy and uncoordinated, the movements of children, not killing machines. In their colorful sweaters, they looked almost absurd, like something from a children's cartoon rather than the terrifying creatures described in the council's briefings. They're just kids, Mackenzie continued softly. Scared, cold kids who lost their parents in the evacuation. Someone has to stand up for them. Before Zachary could respond, the door to Mackenzie's quarters slid open. Commander Wei stood in the doorway, flanked by two security officers. Her expression was stern, her jaw set in a hard line that suggested she was prepared for a confrontation. Dr. Mackenzie Chun, she began formally. You are in violation of Colonial Regulation 7A regarding interaction with hostile xenofauna. You will surrender the Zarthian specimens immediately for proper containment. Mackenzie stood slowly, careful not to disturb Peanut, who had fallen asleep in her lap. The other three hatchlings noticed the newcomers and huddled together, their bioluminescent patches dimming in fear. With respect, Commander, Mackenzie said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. These hatchlings are not hostile, and they're certainly not specimens. They're orphaned children, and I'm not handing them over to freeze in your containment facility. Commander Wei's eyes flickered to the sweater-clad hatchlings, and for just a moment, her expression softened. Then it hardened again. Dr. Chun, Commander, Zachary interrupted, stepping forward. Dr. Chun is right. I've been observing the hatchlings for the past hour. They show no aggressive tendencies, and their body temperature is dangerously low. The containment facility isn't equipped for their needs. The commander looked between them, then at the hatchlings. The largest one yawned, revealing rows of tiny, needle-sharp teeth, then curled up with its siblings. Tiny sweaters, Commander Wei said finally, a hint of disbelief in her voice. You put tiny sweaters on apex predators. Yes, ma'am, Mackenzie replied. Commander Wei was silent for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, but genuine. You humans, she said, shaking her head. You're absolutely insane. She glanced at her security officers. Stand down. Dr. Chun, you have 72 hours to find a proper solution for these hatchlings. If you can prove they're safe and can be rehabilitated, I'll petition the council for a policy change. Mackenzie's face broke into a wide smile. Thank you, Commander. As Wei turned to leave, she paused at the doorway. And Dr. Chun, make sure they stay warm. We don't need any more casualties from our mistakes. When the door closed, Zachary let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. You just changed interstellar policy with knitting. Mackenzie grinned, looking down at the four sleeping hatchlings in their colorful sweaters. Sometimes, she said, the most human thing you can do is show compassion, even when everyone tells you it's dangerous. Peanut chirped softly in its sleep, its bioluminescent patches glowing a contented gold.